Ash and smoke filled our lungs as the stench of death weighed upon our every step. And the old ones drew ever near. We know not how this began, nor when. Time, fear, and the stench of death has smothered our senses, numbed our bodies, dulled our minds. All we knew was that we must not waver, for behind us lie our brethren and our broken dreams. Our home. We are the Orin, defenders of humanity, the last line of defense against these rotten vermin that have infested our world. They are endless, we are few. But we are strong where they are weak, and our allies stretch from the skies to the seas. Powerful ancients that rose from the forest and the plains, mighty titans born from the land beneath our feet. The ancients' powers were vast, but raw and untamed, and they brought with them many a terrible calamity. But with love they held us in the palm of their hands, and in time formed a covenant with the likes of man. With their power coursing through our veins, we held the line, as the days blended into weeks, into the drone of eternity. Until one day, the world in front of my eyes was painted blue.
War and fighting has always been a constant in the world of Wraith. From the generals of Volcor clashing with one another, to the petty squabbles of crooks and thieves in the pits, it is hard to find respite in such a troubled land. But there was once a time when the fighting was justified more than ever. In ages past, the people of Wraith fought to protect the lands from outside invaders, sacrificing their lives for the innocent. In this episode of Lore Pitch, I'll be discussing the battle for Rathe, the defenders who protected the lands, the ancient elementals, and the forces of the Old Ones who sought to take Rathe for themselves. So, what is the full story behind the invasion of Rathe? The past of Rathe is mysterious and largely unknown, but one thing we do know is that the denizens of the land are no stranger to war and conflict. Humans travelled to Rathe from a distant land, settling and shaping the continent to their needs. At the time, Rathe was inhabited by powerful beings known as the Ancients, titanic elementals born from the land, sky and sea. Their power, whilst raw and untamed, was vast and powerful, but they had love for man, and in time would form an alliance. However, the world would soon see an invasion from outside forces. Creatures simply known as the Old Ones would begin to assault the world. These horrific creatures were unlike anything else found on Rathe, and their numbers were seemingly endless. To protect their home from this intrusion, a group of mighty warriors known as the Olin stood as the last line of defense. Over time, their numbers thinned, their bodies numbed, and their minds dulled from constant battle. But they were blessed with power by the Ancients, forming a covenant between them and man. Although this power was not enough, and when all seemed grim, many of the Ancients sacrificed themselves in a final act of desperation to fend off the Old Ones. With the Old Ones defeated for the time, the land began to lay dormant once again, slowly healing its wounds. But as the Old Ones begin to return, The powers of the Ancients and the defenders of Wraith are waking up once more, ready to repeat the war they once fought. In a mighty citadel that lies in the western mountain ranges of Aria, ancient defenders known as the Olin watch over the only entry to the region with an unwavering gaze. During the Third Age, Eisenloft was the first line of defense against the legions of the Void. Yet during the current Age of Man, it is a battlefield frozen in time. During their final stand, the mighty Ancients sacrificed themselves and unleashed a massive burst of energy, encasing both the Olin and the Old Ones in solid ice, ending the battle for good. But the Olin were not the only defenders of Wraith. The Wardens of Candlehold played a major role in the battles, as did the Seers of Vaulthaven. But as the battles ended, the Ancients who empowered the people of Aria vanished, their essence scattered to the wind. As the return of the Old Ones looms over the world, many individuals are rising up to the task of defending their home from vile creatures and abominations. The most prominent example of these is Bravo, a travelling performer seemingly blessed by Aria itself with magnificent power to protect it. Other powerful heroes on Wraith were blessed by another entity, that of Sol and the people of Solana. Currently we are unaware of the role these particular people played during the battles of the Third Age. But we do know that Solanians play a huge role in the current second coming of the Old Ones and the defense of Wraith. So, we know the defenders of Wraith, but who or what exactly are the invaders? Through almost all of the stories and lore we have learned about Wraith, one particular name stands out more than the others: the Old Ones. This name is repeated time and time again, but who or what are the Old Ones? From the limited information we know, the Old Ones and Aesir appear to be one and the same. The best proof we have for this is from the Tales of Aria article, Land of Legends. The War of the Monarchs rages on. Aesirs and their embers stir in the slumber. And Oldhim's backstory has this line: sometimes his dreams took him to his formative years, when the vassals of Embers advanced, forcing them to the north. We know that Oldhim was fighting against the Old Ones, which implies that not only are the Old Ones called the Aesir, but that the Ember are some sort of leading force or elevated versions of the Old Ones. One interesting piece of information comes from two similar but different quotes from Viserai's backstory, both being said by the mysterious entity named Whisper, who inhabited the stained glass windows in the demonastery. Beware the man born into power, who abandoned his people to pursue the arcane arts. He who, even now, seeks power to rival the Aesir themselves. He who would bend and break the laws of this world as he sees fit. No amount of power shall ever be enough to satisfy his desires. Early in the story, we heard the same quote, although with one word changed. Listen well, Arknight. Beware the man born into power, who abandoned his people to pursue the arcane arts. He who, even now, seeks power to rival the Avis themselves. He who would bend and break the laws of this world as he sees fit. No amount of power shall ever be enough to satisfy his desires. Aesir, Avis. Both of these words were interchanged in these two quotes. Initially, I believed this to be an error in the story, but I currently believe they are actually the same word, Avis just being the plural for Aesir. As for the Ember, we already know of two that exist in the lore, those being Ursa, the Soul Reaper, and Blasmophet, the Soul Harvester. But with this revelation comes another question, this time relating to Chain and the Disciples of Pain. Chain and the Disciples of Pain are determined to prevent the Old Ones from reinvading Wraith, which on the surface level is a noble and benevolent cause. However, he specifically seeks out the power of Ursa, one of the Embra, and as speculated earlier, Embra are powerful beings with ties to the Aesir. So why would the Disciples of Pain work with the beings they wish to destroy? Having become an apostle of the Order, Chain is burdened with duty, unified with his brothers in their noble quest to protect humanity from the return of the Aesir, whose vast arcane power would quickly overwhelm the land of Wraith. After spending many months researching and reading, he finally found the key, a whisper of powerful beings who could stand against the Aesir. Thus, he and his fellow disciples have sought a way to weaken the Old Ones and harness their arcane energy to their own needs. So it seems like they are trying to return the Aesir on themselves. But why would they attack Solana if they wish to protect Wraith? My running theory is that Solana is not all it is cut out to be. The Magisters declared anyone heretics who would question contradictions in the old tomes found in their libraries. Perhaps Sol is some form of Embra, just as dangerous as Ursa or Blasmaphet. Perhaps their devout worship of an Embra or godlike being is what is attracting the Aesir in the first place to Wraith. As always, we can only ever speculate about the future events of Wraith. History repeats itself, however, and perhaps many of the same events of Yonder are doomed to repeat themselves. What are your thoughts on the current timeline of Wraith? Do you believe my theories to be correct? I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'd like to give a big thanks to Tommy from the Fresh and Buds podcast for his amazing rendition of Old Hymn for the intro to this video. You can find links to his podcast and socials in the description of this video, including a recent episode of his show featuring myself. I'd also like to give thanks to some other content creators that also auditioned for the role of Old Hymn. It was really difficult to pick who should play the role of Old Hymn in this video, so I'll share the name and socials of those others in the description and in a pinned comment. I highly recommend you all to check them out. One new development for the channel is the creation of the Eternal Oracles, a collective of passionate individuals curious about the creative side of Flesh and Blood. I have launched a Discord server for people to share their thoughts and theories on Flesh and Blood lore, plus share fan art, cosplays, and fanfiction. You can find a link to the Discord in the description as well. Where one battle ends, another starts. I shall see you all on the streets of Volcor. Until next time, stay curious.